everyone. Welcome to the conversation. Hey, welcome to the Conversation Podcast. Every week we get together and we talk about matters of our faith, matters of our religion, our walk in life, and we get together and have those conversations. I'm Todd Brown. This is Rick Coop, and we want you to join us for this conversation. This week, what we're talking about is an interesting one. I don't know. I should qualify it. You decide if it's interesting. To me, it is, and it is triggers to sin. What triggers us to sin in our lives? So a long time ago, I started. I don't remember if it was my idea or whose idea it was, but they were talking about something else, and what they were talking about was knowing what it is. I think it was working out or something that triggers you to not work out. So what are some of the things that, like I'm tired, my alarm didn't go off, I don't have the stuff, all these different things. And I started relating it to the idea of, I started noticing there are things that I know in my life that are sin. There are things that I know that I do that are wrong. And I started noticing what those things were. It's like, okay, so let's say that that something that you have a problem with is shoplifting. There are perfectly good people in this world who have a problem with shoplifting. Okay. And you can call that a mental illness, you can call it whatever you want to. But let's say that that's the thing. When you're standing in the store, picking the thing up to put in your pocket, or to shove in your purse, or whatever that might be, it's too late.
Yeah.
That's not when you stop it. Just like the workout thing, the fact that you don't have your equipment ready is a trigger that makes you stop. Get your equipment ready before you stealing the candy, or stealing the jewelry, or stealing the little things. So many people pick up little things and put them in their pocket in stores and leave. That's not the problem. I mean, that's a problem, but that's not when it started. It started somewhere earlier. So what I started realizing for me was, what's the thing that makes me,
start you down that path,
gets me on the road? It's not necessarily the sin, but it's the thing that gets me there. And I started noticing some triggers for me. What are those things? So that's what got me started.
The tie-in for me here about sin and brokenness, which is what you were kind of talking about, is that one of the descriptions of sin in the Bible is being broken. Is that brokenness.
Or getting off the trail.
Getting off the trail. So many times we use the description of sin as missing the mark. Well, sometimes missing the mark, using that description, misses the mark. That was kind of good. Anyway, but what sin is, it's a brokenness. It's a thing where we are in a incorrect relationship with the Lord, and that's why I think that the scriptures talk about it being broken, because through Him we're whole, but without Him there's this brokenness. And you're right, many things can lead us to go ahead and take in the path and doing what we want to do. Sometimes it's as simple as our own stubbornness.
Yeah.
Sometimes not so. That's fine, God, thanks a lot, appreciate it, I got today.
I got this, I can do this.
Yeah.
I've thought this out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you say missing the mark, but that goes back to the trigger idea. And the idea, so we're both people who've shot guns and bows, and we've done that, so we know what it takes, right? So I hunt. You've hunted. When you hunt deer or you hunt squirrel, I don't care what it is. when you miss that shot, that missing of that shot didn't start then.
Oh, sure.
It started way back. There's a guy I watch on YouTube who talks about archery, and specifically hunting archery, and he comes on every June and says, "It's too late. If you don't start now, it's too late. I know that the season comes in October, but you better start now.
Yeah.
You better get back at it. Don't wait till the week before you go out."
Right.
And make sure and check your equipment. Make sure your stuff's in line. Get your arrows tuned. Be ready to go for this moment. So the point being, you say missing the mark maybe isn't exactly missing the mark, maybe, but yeah, it kind of makes it hits there too, because your missing the mark didn't start when you had when you were at the archery contest. For those who can't deal with my deer killing comparison, it didn't start while you're standing on the line at the archery contest. It started 3-4 months ago when you didn't get your equipment tuned, when you didn't put in your practice days.
We can talk about that. You and I are both we both walk. We both exercise. But it can be the same thing for those who are getting ready to run a 10K.
Yep.
You don't start practicing for the 10K the week before or the day before. That's somebody, you build up your endurance, you've looked at your times, you've walked, you've made sure that your body's in fairly decent shape. So you're right, it's something that happens way before the actual infraction.
Yeah. So let's use that example. What are some things that trigger you not getting? What are the things that go into you not getting your time in, or you not even walking or running the 10K? What are some things that
What? It just so happens I have a list.
Yeah.
of things. Depression can lead to sin. Chronic pain can lead to sin. Being hungry, being lonely, being tired, being angry, having a negative mindset about whatever.
Yeah.
Lack of support. You may not feel like anybody even cares, so you might as well go ahead and do it.
Yep.
Feeling abandoned by God. God, where are you? If you're not here, feeling abandoned by friends, which goes back to a loneliness. Feeling unwanted or unneeded or unvalued. Being in bad relationships. Things that happen today are withdrawal from addictive behaviors, whether it's alcohol or drugs or pornography or gambling or whatever. Sometimes those temptations come back to you and you want to get started in them all over again. Certain people, certain places, certain things, certain music can remind you of something from the past. And then the gears start turning in your head. There's been time. Have you ever been in those times where you hear a song and it reminds you of summer 1970 for me, 1978, I was sitting here, first time I heard that song, and then there's also things that can trigger bad stuff going on. And then places or evils that encourage you to, or people that encourage you to just go ahead. Nobody's going to know. They're going to know. Nobody's going to know.
Yeah.
So for me, those are some of the things that can trigger you walking down the path to the final act.
Yeah. So many of those things were things that I listed when we talk about anger. You talked about anger, and then nobody cares kind of thing, and all I can do is talk about me. Right? I mean, I can talk about what I know other people go through, but I can also talk about me and what I know happens to me. And anger and nobody cares can be married to each other. Give you an example. So to help walk out this trigger thing, here's kind of what happens for a particular anger trail. I know I shouldn't watch pornography. So let's say, right? I know I shouldn't watch pornography. I know that it's wrong because, and this just goes to show you, it doesn't matter whether or not, why, if you know it's wrong and you even know why it's wrong. It doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I know it's wrong because you're lusting after someone else, and Christ says, when you, even lusting after somebody, you've already committed adultery with them. Mm-hmm. All right. You've also devalued them as a human. They became a thing. Mm-hmm. They're no longer a person. They're a commodity that you're consuming. All right. You have no relationship to them, and you are distorting your view of humanity. Mm-hmm. Someday we need to talk about pornography just as a whole, but those are just some quickie reasons. All right. So, but we also, as humans, we need a few things. We need human contact. We need food. Mm-hmm. We need love. And I would argue men need respect. They need to feel like they're getting something done.
Yeah.
All right. So then, here's the trail. You're not getting the attention that you need. Someone's not paying attention to you. You may be not getting the physical relationship that you feel like you deserve. That's another one. That's another trigger. I deserve it.
Yeah.
And so you begin to ruminate over that, and then a particularly hurtful moment comes in your physical relationship, or even in your day-to-day walk with your significant other. And then you begin to feel like, well, screw it.
Yeah.
Screw it. They don't care. Nobody cares. I have a problem. Nobody cares.
Well, then you do the thing that Adam did. This woman you gave me.
Yeah, this broken. This woman's broken. Or this man's broken.
Yeah.
I won't just say men have a problem with it, because women do too.
Yeah.
But I'm going to fix it myself. It's the seed that and so for me, when you're up against that, when we talk about a trigger, so that's the moment right there, right? So like I'm mad, I'm having a pity party, and I could feel it. I know that's coming. I know it's coming. When we talk about triggers, what I'm talking about when I talk about triggers is that moment. Mm-hmm. If we can find a way to deal with that moment, then we don't get here. And when Jesus talks about, if you lust after a woman in your heart, you have committed adultery with her. Mm-hmm. When you call your brother stupid, you killed him. That's what he's talking about. This idea of triggers is not a Rick and Todd concept.
Right.
It's not just something I thought of one day. It's what Jesus is saying to us when he says, when you lust after a woman in your heart, you've already committed adultery.
It's already been there.
Because this is the beginning of it. This is the birth of it. If you can stop there, we're good. But if you don't stop there, it's very likely you're going to end up here. So let's stop here. An example of that very early in the Bible is Cain and Abel. Mm-hmm. And God warned Cain. He said, "Hey, what are you so angry about?
What's going on here,
dude?" Genesis 4, 6, and 7. It says, then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry?
Yep.
Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." So, in that moment, Cain's place was, he's so angry with his brother that God warned him, "Hey, bud, hey.
Yeah.
Hey, you got sideways, you did wrong, and you know you did wrong. So let's deal with that, deal with you. Focus back off of him and focus on you, and let's get that." So God points it out early in the Bible. Jesus points it out a couple of times.
I think about the firing of a pistol.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking about this as you were talking and seeing what you were saying going along with this, what it takes to fire a pistol. You put your finger on the trigger. It's the first step.
Mm-hmm.
You squeeze the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
As you squeeze the trigger, due to the mechanisms inside the gun, the hammer comes back.
Mm-hmm.
You keep squeezing it long enough, the hammer is eventually going to release and hit the primer on the bullet. Once the primer is ignited, then it's going to ignite the gunpowder. Once the gunpowder is ignited, then it's going to send the bullet forward. And it's going to go down the chamber, down, whatever, the barrel. And then it's going to be in the air. And eventually, it's going to hit the target.
Yeah.
So those are different steps to what actually, it's just not like boom, 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 boom. Those are the different steps that happen in an instant. When we sin, the first step is we put our finger on the trigger.
Yeah.
Whatever got us there, put it there.
Yeah, it started
Yeah.
way back.
Yeah. Right. And that's what the Lord is trying to say. Okay, because you thought about squeezing the trigger, stop there. Let's get it taken care of.
Deal with that.
Right there.
Yep.
Because as soon as you start going to the next step, by the time the hammer's back, by the time the hammer's going forward, it's too late to stop.
It's done.
It's the everything's already been set in motion for that bullet to go and hurt or wound whoever, whatever, or hurt you in some way. So if you can stop it with the thought, and you and I have talked about this before, there's always an out.
Yeah.
There's always a time that we know. I've seen it time and time again in my life, but there's always a time when, wait a minute.
Yeah. Paul tells us that there will never come a time when you will be tempted.
Yeah.
That you won't be shown a way
Right.
to come away from that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
This idea of stopping early is, again, I argue there are very Jesus' yoke is easy and his burden is light. He doesn't give you 75 things. He gives you some key things. But this idea of catching at the trigger point, catching when it starts, don't put the seed in the ground. Don't try and cut the weeds. Just don't put them in the ground.
Yeah.
Is so central to his message. Another point, he says, if you find that you're on your way to offer your sacrifice before the Lord and you remember that you have a problem between you and your brother, go fix the problem with your brother first.
Yeah.
This is such a central thing for him. It's the kill it before it starts.
Yeah.
As soon as you recognize it, to kill it.
Mm-hmm.
Some other things that went through my head were lust, which we've talked about, but it's the idea of when we change when things that trigger early on, things we can stop. When we start thinking of humans as a commodity, not as a person. What is it? The silly statement that's so true. Love people, use things. Mm-hmm. Never confuse that. Mm-hmm. Love people, use things. Don't use people, love things. Because when we start loving things and using people to get them, that's a trigger.
Yeah.
When we start loving things, that's a trigger. Says the guy who I know I can fixate on a thing. Mm-hmm. As whatever your hobby is, I think you hobbyists can relate. Whatever your hobby is, you can go, ooh, if I just had that pair of scissors, I could cut things so precisely. If I had that tree stand, I could do all kinds of cool stuff. If I had that bow.
And it must be good because look at all the things I can do with it.
Yes. but you have a tree stand and a bow. But you have scissors. What do you?
Right.
But that one, we just get lost in those things.
Yeah.
I guess really, I kind of already said it. The love of the world
Mm-hmm.
and the things in it, as opposed to the love of the people and your relationship
Right.
with God. If that's your priority, does that mean the cheesecake doesn't taste good? No. If you like cheesecake. There's somebody out there going, no, it does. Cheesecake tastes awful. But 1 John 2:16 says, for everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Wow, that's a pretty good list.
Yeah.
Come not from the Father, but from the world.
I think about the attacks in my life. For me, comes one of two ways. There are those times when I have to admit, Todd, it's planned out. It's like, okay, I'm going to be able to have this time to do this thing, and if I do this thing, then nobody's going to know that I'm doing that, and I can go ahead and do it.
Yep.
Or like one of the things I've been working on is trying to lose weight and the walking and getting healthier. But you know what? If I just stop on the way to work at the donut shop
Yep.
and go ahead and grab just a donut, I can have it eaten by work. Because there's people at work that know that I'm working on weight and trying to walk. I can eat the donut, and then Mary, my wife, she won't know that I had the donut because I can throw the trash bag or the bag away before. So
Testify.
there are those times.
Testify.
Yeah, there are those times when I plan it out, and I know that I'm doing. So people will say, "Well, what's the harm in eating a donut, Rick?" Well, the harm in eating the donut is that I've made a decision that my wife knows about and believes in me for, that there are friends and people are watching to see. And, just as soon as somebody says, hey, I saw you walk over to the dumpster, it looks like you were throwing away a food bag. Yeah, that was an old one that I had in the truck. I decided to clean some things out. So then you start trying to cover it with a lie.
Absolutely.
But then there are those times in my life when I'm looking at something on social media.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked about it before. I like to watch those reels that are on there. And occasionally something will pop up, and in my mind, there's a trigger there.
Click it.
And it's like...
Click it. You know what's coming.
That came out of the blue.
Yeah.
That I wasn't prepared for that.
Yeah.
So for me, this two-sided coin is sometimes these things come out of nowhere. And I think that's why the Lord tells us, be watchful, take care, be aware of what's happening.
Yeah.
But then there are also those times when, like Cain, the Lord's saying, hey man, what's the mindset here? What are you doing here? Why are you looking to go down a wrong path and get angry about things or do whatever?
Yep.
It's one of the reasons why I personally don't watch news so much anymore.
There's a trigger.
For
There's
me
a
it
trigger.
is.
Oh,
for me it is.
Absolutely.
For me it's for me, I used to convince myself that it was a valid reason to get mad. And it may be to get mad, and I might try to say, well, this is righteous anger. It's okay for me to be mad about this one because God wouldn't like this one. Well, first of all, it's not up for me to speak for God. Second of all, I'm making an excuse to get mad about something that I may have no reason whatsoever to get mad about.
Or any ability to change.
Yeah.
Or any ability to change.
Right.
Wow, I think that's a trigger for so many conservative Christian people.
Exactly.
People who are watching. Conservative Christian people.
Yeah.
Let's pick on both of us. Let's say progressive or liberal Christian people get so mad. They're watching, and it doesn't matter, and they light us both up. They light us up on purpose.
And what gets me is a lot of the times when you really get to the root of whatever that thing is, it's not the truth that you thought it was.
Right. And it's not... I like to listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, and yes, I know he drops an awful lot of F-bombs, but he has very intelligent people on there, and he's good at conversation. My apologies over. But he talks about, we were talking about watching things and
getting angry about the things that come on that can trigger us again.
Anyway, there's just talking about the idea that they come from both sides. They come at us
absolutely.
from both sides.
Nobody's immune. I don't care if you're liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican. I don't care. There are triggers that happen there.
And they don't care about that. We talked about Satan earlier. He doesn't care which side you fail on, just that you fail.
That you fail. Yeah. Yeah.
You can fall off that boat on the starboard or the port. I really don't care.
If you are sitting and I'm going to make somebody mad right now, but that's okay. I hope it doesn't trigger you. But if you're sitting wherever you're sitting right now or standing and listening to this podcast and you happen to be a Democrat or a Republican, I can tell you that Satan does not care what your political party is. What he cares about is that you get mad about something and it be unrighteous anger, and then that unrighteous anger separate you from God.
Yeah.
I will also tell you this. If you are a Democrat or a Republican, a conservative or a liberal, and you think God cares about the man-made system of politics, then I think you're wrong there too. Yeah. Because if you think that you're getting all righteously angry about something,
careful. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Render unto to God that which is God's.
And you belong to God.
You belong to God.
Yeah.
Can't worry about that. Yeah.
Right.
So we talk about anger, lust, a love of the world. These are the things. I think another trigger or another thing that leads us down this path towards the greater sin is not fully trusting the plan of Christ.
Come on.
The plan of salvation.
Yeah.
You said it earlier. That's okay, God. I got this.
Mm-hmm.
Not fully trusting that dastardly dude did that dastardly thing, but God's got it, and you don't have to go be the cleanup man to go deal with that. And it reminded me with what you were saying about politics. Sometimes you have to. Not sometimes. Anytime you can, you need to focus on on God's plan and trust that. I got 2 Corinthians 11:3 that says, "But I am afraid that as the serpent deceived Eve by his craftiness, your minds will be led astray from the simplicity and purity of devotion to Christ." You're going to get, and Paul at another point talks about, you're all concerned with all these complex, weird things, and you've left this simple idea: love on people, no matter who they are, care about people, and don't curse them, and find a way to help improve them and make them better. Jesus says, "You have heard it said to hate your enemy, and hate your enemy and love your friend," essentially. And he says, "But I tell you this: love your enemy." What? Love your enemy, and that goes back to you're having a conversation about triggers of sin. That is a trigger of sin. If you give yourself permission to hate somebody, anybody, if you give yourself permission to hate them, you already killed them. You're headed down that road already.
Yep.
You've moved from focusing on the simplicity and purity of devotion to Christ. You've moved away from give to all who ask and love everyone and let God sort it out.
Yeah. You talk about that, and it brings me to a place, and I'm going to do a little confession here. You already know about it.
Yeah.
But, and I'm going to tie two things in here. Physical things that can trigger us, or feeling abandoned by God.
Yeah.
So, about, what was it, a couple months ago, I'm dealing with glaucoma. And a glaucoma, for those of you who may not know, is a eye disease that eventually you lose your eyesight. They can prolong it, but eventually you lose your eyesight. So the doctor that I'm seeing prescribed this medication for my eyes in order to dry your eyes out. The problem is you have pressure on your eyes, and it's because of fluid in your eyes. So he gave me this medication to help dry my eyes out, to take the pressure off my eyes. My eyes are already dry, and the medication has now caused another problem to where part of my iris can slip, and the pressure in my eye can instantaneously blow up, causing great pain and instantly causing me to go blind. So a couple months ago, I'm calling Todd and saying, I'm tired of this crap. I'm dealing with this, blah, blah, blah. I'm tired of being in pain. I'm tired of having back pain from, arthritis. I'm tired of having this. I'm tired of having that. Now my eyesight, I do one thing and I'm griping.
Yeah.
You already heard all this.
Yep. I was there.
So, yeah, you were there. And then I start like, okay, so where's God in all this? What are you doing, God? You promised me this, you promised me that, why didn't you see, blah, 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 blah. So I get into this real funk. Yeah. And you know how pretty bad it was. Just forget everything. Why am I even trying?
Yep.
But then I had to remember who I was, where I was at, who's in control. Quit muddling it up with everything. What's the end result? Am I still a child of God or not?
Yep.
Was the doctor doing the best that he could? I believe he was. I've trusted him with everything else. Is this something else that happened? Yes. Are the attacks still happening? Yep. The triggers are still coming.
Will they be ending anytime soon?
Yeah.
No.
Whether it be physical, whether it be mental, whether it be emotional, Satan doesn't care. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about what he can and what he needs to do. All he wants you to do is walk away from God.
Yep. Don't care which side of the boat you fall off of.
Yep.
As long as you fall off the boat.
As long as you fall off the boat. And then that's where we have to remember, who do we belong to?
And again, I think Paul said it so well. He just says, your minds will be led astray from the simplicity and the purity of devotion to Christ. We just lose focus because of worldly things. On the other hand, dude, going blind sucks.
Sure.
And the fact that it would almost be better if you just went blind.
Yeah.
But to go a little bit at a time over such a long period of time, and then to have somebody throw you a rope and go, here, this could maybe work. Oh, we didn't do it right.
Well, fortunately, I've worked something out with my wife. She said I can put my hands on her shoulder and walk behind her and shuffle.
There we go. Exactly.
But the end result of this is, and I do believe in healing.
Yeah.
I don't know what the Lord has in store, but I also know that He has things in store.
Yeah.
He has me in His mind.
Yep.
And if I walk away from Him, then it's my choice, because He's not going to walk away from me.
Nope. He will always be there.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. That's a 7,000 mile long other stretch we could go down. So we've talked about what triggers are and trying to recognize them and understanding what they are. So that's step one of dealing with triggers in our lives. as far as sin is concerned. Step one is what I'm going to ask you to do. This is more instructive than a lot of our videos. Most of our videos are just conversations, or most of our podcasts are just conversations. What I'm going to ask you to do is this. When you find yourself in the midst of your brokenness, whatever that is, if it's shoplifting, it's shoplifting. If it's porn, it's porn. If it's smoking something you shouldn't smoke, drinking something you shouldn't drink, being someplace you shouldn't ought to be, whatever. When you find yourself there, sooner if you can, but when you find yourself in the midst of your brokenness, I want to ask you to do yourself a favor. I want you to start walking it back. What was it that started this trip? For me, we walked through a couple of examples. If your thing is shoplifting, then what was it that got you there? Was there something that you were? A lot of people think shoplifting is because you don't have things, and it can be that. Okay. But then did you start, did you catch yourself being mad that you didn't have the things? Did you catch yourself having a pity party for yourself because you didn't have the things? But one of the things I know about people who shoplift is very super wealthy people shoplift. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it isn't because they don't have things.
Right.
It's a reaction to their world in some way. It can be that they don't feel like they don't feel like they get the attention they need from somebody. It can be because they're mad at somebody. It can be because they don't have any private time of their own, and so they get some private time. They get some time alone, and they do something sneaky. The point being, walk it back. Mm-hmm. Where did you get on this train at? For me, so often, and my wife knows this, so I'm not telling anything to anybody that they don't, other than those who are watching, that don't know. For me, it starts with a couple of things. One is I find myself angry, and not openly. I'm very good at internalizing. Mm-hmm. I'm angry, frustrated, whatever word you want to call it, because I didn't get the thus and such that I thought I should get. I didn't get the whatever that might be that I felt like I should get. Mm-hmm. And then because I'm what I call a self-medicator, I start looking at all of that one. I see that one. Oh yeah, and that brings up these other 7. And that one too. And oh yeah, that. And then it's all internalized. But what it ends up doing is it starts walking itself out. Well, I have this problem and that problem and these things, and those count on other people. Well, screw that. I can fix it myself. Mm-hmm. And the fix it myself, that's what I know, is the fix it myself is usually the brokenness for me.
Yeah. When
you start, it's a weird thing to say, but when you start fixing it yourself, when you stop relying on other people and relationship with other people, then you're walking down. That's that moment Jesus talks about. That's that lusting after a woman who isn't your wife. When you start calling your brother, having hatred for your brother. When you start
wanting
talking
that
about
thing in the store.
Yeah, when you start talking about how evil Mr. Trump is, or how stupid and senile Mr. Biden is. When you start talking about how what a dummy, and I'm using public figures, but what a dummy President Bush was, or whatever. When you start needing to be angry with or trash other people and put them in their place, that's the beginning. That's step one. But then you start self-medicating at some point, because you're the only one you can count on to solve the problem. Yeah. So that's my triggers. Okay, so that's my triggers. Those are the things that I deal with. You need to start walking yours back.
Yeah, exactly. Figure out what yours are. And I don't know if we're ready for this yet, but I want to... I'm trying not to jump ahead too much, but if you are in the midst of a storm right now, something that you've caused for yourself.
Yep.
We both been there. We know and we understand. There's a song that I heard. It is by Casting Crowns, and it's called "Praise You in the Storm." And the words of it have hit me a couple of times lately. I'll praise you in the storm, and I'll lift up my hands. For you are who you are, no matter where I am. Every tear I've cried, you hold in your hand. You never left my side. And although my heart is torn, I'll still praise you in the storm. And then it goes on to say, I lift my eyes into the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. That's out of Psalm 21.
Yep.
If you're in the middle of this storm that 9 times out of 10 you've created, because you've fallen and you've pulled the trigger and you've gotten yourself into this mess, you can still turn back to Him. Lift your eyes up to Him. It's like I was just saying with myself a couple months ago. What has it been? 2-3 months ago. I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, wait a minute, stop. Mm-hmm. Just stop. Mm-hmm. Who are you? And sometimes that's hard to do. As you know, to turn around and face the Lord and say, man, I messed up.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
And again. And here I am again, Lord. And one more time, Lord. How many times will you put up with this? And of course, for those of us who know Scripture, one of the things that comes to mind is 70 times 7. Mm-hmm. It's not a number. That means as many times as it takes.
Whatever we got to do.
Yeah.
Well, that brings this to this point. So you identify your trigger. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is. Find your trigger. Deal with it then at the birth.
At the birth
of that trigger. Right. All right. So that's really cool. If you could do that, wouldn't that be great? But sometimes you don't.
Right.
And to your point, sometimes you find yourself. I keep using shoplifting, and I don't know why. Maybe there's somebody who needs to hear that. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're pornography. Maybe so I'll use those 2 examples. So
maybe it's drugs.
Yeah, but drugs you find yourself. You need to stop when you recognize it, because God, you can act like you don't, but God will point it to you. You know, I know me, and I know me well, and I know me well enough to know I know when it's happening. Mm-hmm. You could be shoplifting. You could be in the store with the thing in your pocket.
Yep.
And be convicted. Be alerted by God. Hey.
Here it comes.
You can take that thing out of your pocket and put it back. Yeah, but I might get caught. I already had it in my pocket. I need to just leave. No. You can't. There's a joke by George Carlin that I'm almost ashamed I know, but he's a very intelligent man who talks about things like this, but I won't tell you specifically the sin he's talking about. If you know, you know. But he jokes about there's 7 sins in each sin. You had to think about the sin. You had to plan the place for the sin. You had to take the thing to the place to sin.
Right.
You did the sin, and you had to walk away from the sin. There's all these sins, and no one sin. You can get off this train anytime you want to, and it takes a lot of courage. But it goes back to this idea about you can come back to the simplicity and purity of Christ. The simplicity and purity of Christ says, I can stop right here and go back. Mm-hmm. So you've identified the triggers, but you walked past them this time.
Yeah.
The only way you're going to not walk past it next time is to stop the moment you recognize that you walked past it.
Good point.
So we drove to the store, we walked in the building, we walked to the section, we saw the stuff, we picked up the doodad, we put it in our pocket, and then it hits us. You put it back. Mm-hmm. And you have to trust from there. that there's something bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get busted, you get busted. But you got busted putting it back. At that point, hey, I wasn't going to buy that. I put it back. Search me. I don't have it. At that point, there's an escape route. There's a way out. But then I'll bet you the next time you get up out that car and you start walking in that store, you found your trigger. You know.
Yeah.
You know where you're at that point. You know before you get to step 7 how you got there.
Mm-hmm.
So you sit down at your computer. You're frustrated and ticked off about some things that have been going on in your life, and you decide that you're going to open up that web page. Or here's what the world does to you now. It's popping up on the side of the corner pictures and short films and Facebook and whatever, and it's not somebody who's naked, but it's somebody who's pretty much naked. And then you see that, and then you play that little video, and then your brain goes, well, what about that other thing? And then you search that. I wonder what that's like, and you search for it. And it's pictures. Oh, they were on spring break. What about pictures about spring break? Oh, wow, look at those pictures of spring break. And you click it, and that's a half hour later, and you're off to the races, baby.
Yep.
You know, but you know when you can quit? Right then.
Right.
But next time, you know that little thing in Reels and Facebook isn't as innocent as you thought it was.
One of the things I worry about, because I've worked in this field, is with gambling.
Yeah.
And you and I both like to watch sports. I like baseball. Football's coming up. We're in preseason now. And I keep watching these commercials during the games.
Yeah.
Where they do this, 20-second thing about gambling and how easy it is, and then you've got this little 3-second little blurb. If you have a problem with gambling, dial blah 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 blah.
Yeah, because they've been told they have to do that.
Yeah,
legally.
Right. The problem is that's a trigger for somebody who has a gambling addiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we've given them their out. Well, yeah, in a way you have, but it's still hard. I've watched it happen with people.
Man, I know this game. I know how this game's going to go.
Yeah.
If I could just do... Now, I've never dealt with a gambling addiction, so I don't understand it well enough to know, but I'm told that if you have a gambling addiction, that you become convinced, that, and nothing can convince you otherwise, that your next role is going to be the thing that saves you. Oh, but I didn't do it right this time, but next time, now I know. Now I'll do it right. And then the next time, and then the next time. And the worst thing that can happen is you win a little bit.
I was a supervisor at a casino, a security supervisor, and I was standing at the door with one of my officers, and we heard a lady come through talking to her friend, saying, "I hope we win today. I've got rent coming up, and I don't have enough money for groceries." And we both looked at each other, and I wanted to follow her and say,
"Get back in your car.
Go home.
What are you doing?
At least the money that you have, buy groceries so you can eat. But don't be here.
Yeah.
Because I would tell you that the house wins 85 to 90% of the time.
This is to say the
That's
strip
why they
in
call
Vegas was built by losers.
Yeah, they call it gambling, not winning.
Yeah. So
anyway,
we capture our triggers. So if you can, we just walked through how you walk it back. And I'd love to, if something you're going to put, if you want to type something in, be as confessional as you want or whatever, but what if you know of somebody's brokenness, yours, somebody else's, and you know what these initial triggers are, I'd love to hear it, because I think people need help with finding what their trigger is. But identify your trigger. I think the next thing is going to sound so churchy, but it's just the truth. Fill yourself with the Word of God.
Absolutely.
Because when you were going through your thing a couple of months ago, when I've gone through my thing over and over again, when you go through those things, it's the Word of God, being able to bring it out of your face and have it come from your heart, that saves you. It's those moments when you're in the dark and you can't find a flashlight and you need help. It's those moments when you have it in you, when the light is in you, that will save you.
The only thing that will truly quench the hunger, the thirst, the hole that might be in your soul at that moment, or the drive. The only true way to quench that is a relationship with the Lord.
Yeah, I think that's my next one, was be in a relationship with Jesus.
You have to allow Him to fill the void.
But relationships are yucky, and they're messy, and they're hurtful, and you get sideways in it. Yes, so does the one with Jesus.
Yeah.
It's messy, and it gets sideways from time to time. But if you're not in a relationship
and there's
at
things
all,
He's going to tell you that you don't want to hear. Yeah.
If you're not in a relationship, you have no place to go.
Right.
I mean, you can always start, but
and the loneliness will remain.
Yeah, but you are in a better spot if you already know where to find Him, and you already know. So if you put the Word in your heart, if you start paying attention, come to our Sunday school class, Sunday mornings, come and just listen. There's a million different views. If you don't have something to read, find the Southside Church of the Nazarene Muncie Facebook page. We've got the Connections Bible study that's there. But start putting it in your heart. And the reason is, when you're in the middle of the storm, is not the time to start deciding whether or not you've got a life raft.
Yeah.
When you already hit the iceberg is not the time to start looking for a life raft.
I hope we have a lifeboat.
Yeah,
here.
the time when the tornado's coming is not the time to go, did we drill on this? Where do we go? What are we supposed to do? And if you've got it in your heart, that's God says plainly in numerous prophecies before Jesus comes. He says there's going to come a time when I'm going to put my law in their heart.
Right.
I'm going to put my word in their heart, and they will know it. Capture your triggers. Know the Word of God. Know the Bible. Know what. If you know nothing else, just read the Gospels. Know what Jesus says.
Right. Right.
But read the whole thing would be awesome for me. And then be in a relationship with Christ. Talk to Him. Not when you're in the storm for the first time.
Right.
You can do that. See, I hate to say it that way. I say that way like, well, then it's too late. No, the pastor said don't talk to him when you're in the storm for the first time. No, it's probably a good time.
Yeah.
But it'd be good if you'd already talked to him.
I'm going to say any point in this is a good time to turn around and talk to him.
Yeah, anytime.
Any point. But the better time to talk to him is before.
Yeah, we're talking about triggers today.
Right.
We're talking about the before.
Right.
So if you're going to kill the trigger, you need to have been in a relationship with Christ before you get there.
Right.
Because in case you didn't notice, we both still get triggered.
Yeah.
And we're in a long-term relationship with Christ.
Right.
We still get triggered. The difference is, do you have the tools to defend yourself?
Yeah, exactly. Therefore, put on the full armor of God and protect yourself.
Yeah, putting on the full armor
against
of God.
the fiery darts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Guys, I hope that helped you. It helped me a long time ago when it hit me that I needed to start stopping things when I was triggered, not after I was already in the middle of it. And I hope that you can start walking it back. There's no shame in recognizing, in fact, I would argue maybe that's the first step, recognizing what your brokenness is. Satan knows what it is. He's already well aware. But if you can start backing up the steps, maybe today, if it's 10 steps, maybe today you start recognizing step 5. But start going it back and start stopping it there, and you'll do much better. Guys, I hope you've gotten something out of this. Let us know, what are some things you know that are triggers for people? We'd love to hear what they are. If you like this, please give us a like, a follow, and a subscribe would be great to help us, to help make sure you see when things come up, because Facebook has started jacking with us and started stopping some of our posts. But we'd love hearing from you guys. Hey, have a great day. Take care.
Take care, everybody.